Hey everybody, welcome to On Podcast, the On Microsoft podcast. Again, the one and only podcast for On Microsoft, the only place for you to hear about Microsoft news.
And you got like
Really,
five ons in there, like usual,
I
to
know I'm
make
gonna see
sure.
how many ons. By the time we're like in episode 40, I want to have 15 or 20 ons in there. But enough about
uh,
the ons. We're here to talk about Microsoft and more Microsoft news that happened last week and news that's going to be happening in the coming week.
so why
I
don't you get
am,
us
yeah,
started
that's
with
it. I'm Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined with the world's greatest co-host.
Riff Bacchus?
Yeah, and he's gonna jump into some of our highlights for the week.
So, for all of you people who are using Teams, we have some good news for you this week. There's been a lot of talk about some new Teams features. So, we're just gonna highlight some stuff that we heard from Microsoft this week about Teams. And Kareem is always about the business, and apparently Microsoft was trying to acquire a pretty big company.
Yeah, apparently there's been news that broke this week about Microsoft's interest in Pinterest. Ironically, so we'll talk about what could have been and why. Why would Microsoft be interested in Pinterest?
And then we have some Surface news. Surface Duo is expanding to new markets. So we'll just look at where Surface Duo is heading next, even though it's not really selling well here in the United States. And then there's also some rumors about the new Android 11 update for Surface Duo. So get you up to speed on that too. And that was like four surfaces in one sentence, but there's still more surface ahead for the week ahead, which I'll let Kareem get into now.
Yeah, for those of you who can't see the podcast, Microsoft was kind enough to loan us a Surface Pro 7 Plus. That's just the key point. But, for those of you who've seen a Surface Pro, it looks like a Surface Pro. But they've made a bunch of spec improvements, and, I'm going to have a first impressions without a spoiler alert. These spec improvements in the last 36 hours I've been using it are impressive. So, shout outs to spec improvements.
And then Microsoft is also holding a AI and gaming research summit next month. So we'll just talk about what that is if you guys are curious. And also, we do have another special guest coming up next week.
Yeah, we have Richard Hay. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He'll correct us during the interview, but he is a Microsoft MVP, a stalwart in the industry. Uh, I'm sure many of you have already heard of his name or heard references or shout outs or inclusions of him across Twitter and other people's journalistic efforts. He was kind enough to join us on the podcast. So for those of you who will be putting up a post about it. And if you have any questions you want to ask him or want us to ask him, please feel free to drop in on those.
So, time to get started with the Teams news, which apparently Microsoft is introducing Teams Pro, like Windows 10 Pro, but this is not just not really what you think it is. If you're someone who depends on like webinars and live events, Teams Pro is going to be something that you're going to want to consider buying. They're basically adding new meeting and webinar capabilities to Teams with this Team Pro thing, and Microsoft is planning to launch it at the tenant level. And apparently, it's coming in mid March. And I think Brad Sams of Petri.com was the one who broke the story. And he mentioned that the Teams Pro Service Plan is going to deliver some enhanced meeting intelligence and webinar capabilities. And organizations will be able to host Teams live events and Teams meetings for interactive online sessions. There's not many official details about this plan, but apparently it's coming with some important updates that are going to be announced at Ignite. It includes webinar registration and reporting functionalities and other meeting options like dynamic view. And there are a couple of specific plans that you can add them to, and I'll just let Kareem go through that because I need to take a breath after talking about Teams for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah, it says Microsoft says these capabilities will be enabled in Teams Surface plans. Users will be able to add them to any Microsoft 360, Office 365. I mean, sorry, Microsoft 365, Office 365, and Microsoft 365 E5 Enterprise, E3, A5, and A3 Business Standard and Business Basic subscriptions. In addition, Microsoft detailed that all the new Teams features will be enabled by default for all users with the licenses that were mentioned above. So anyone with any of those EA versions, E5, E3, A5, and A3 will be able to get this automatically. But however, IT admins will be able to turn off manually if they, have, for whatever reason, security issues or their apps that don't work or support any of the new Teams features. So for those admins who are very cautious and want to move at a slower pace, you will be able to turn those off within your own feature settings.
It's basically not like a Windows 10 Pro where it's like a different flavor of Teams or anything. It's just adding like some sizable features for Teams, for webinars, and for live events.
Yeah, we've just to give it a little context and color to this, Microsoft has been building out its webinar and um, forgot what the second part of that was.
Live events.
Live events, sorry, platforms by basically dogfooding and hosting some of the bigger sporting events. Like we know that Teams was a support mechanism and infrastructure for the NFL during the playoffs. It was the same thing for the NBA during the playoffs. They've hosted different award shows as well, throughout 2020. So they're getting kind of the experience and the scale to kind of host an enterprise event or something like CES, which I believe they also were big. They were the partners for that as well. So turning this into a live events platform is huge. This is something I believe that they're trying to kind of ward off or kind of block Zoom, because Zoom is also very big in this space. So again, just a little context on why Microsoft might be building these things out the way they are.
And other than Teams Pro, there's also anyone can try this out. There's the new Milestone and Bulletins app, which are coming to Teams. I went hands-on with it a couple of days ago, and just to be clear, these apps are built on the Microsoft Power Platform, and it's all about allowing users to manage, track, and collaborate on group projects within Teams itself. You might already be using Planner or integrations with Asana or some of the other third-party apps that plug in with Teams. But these two apps are built on Power Platform, and they're basically a way to get you more organized and to help you stay on top of your work and to track your projects. So the first one is Milestones, which is designed to help managers stay on top of their work by tracking projects and initiatives across the organization. It provides tools for setting up projects and work items, assigning work items to employees, and classifying work items. And you're able to view all of your work just like Planner. How Planner works, you have like a 360-degree view of all your items and all the different departments and wherever they come from. It's pretty clean and it's pretty concise. And I'll have the GIF for you to check it out because they did have a post about it when they released it. And secondly, last week we talked about Viva and how Viva is designed to make your work from home life easier and bring together like stuff that you normally would be doing in person, like town halls and events and stuff like that. But the Bulletins app is kind of a little bit like Viva because it's all about employees and helping you communicate right within Microsoft Teams. You'll be able to like read broadcasts from your managers, see memos, see announcements, and read company news. And they appear in a pretty nice dashboard with lots of fancy visuals that your manager could set up. And it's basically a new way to interact with things happening across your company. And it's really great to see that Microsoft is building these apps on Power Platform, which makes it easy for people and for companies to customize to their own liking.
Yeah, it seems like they're taking Milestone's apps and making a micro version of the Viva platform for this. So where the entire company could be on Viva, you and your specific departments can use Milestones as a more intimate engagement with your immediate supervisor or your next door coworker or whatnot, versus having to see the entire flood of company information and news.
This is what Microsoft is great at with Teams, just making sure plugging in everything that they have in one shot and making sure that you're able to get everything from Microsoft 365 all in one place.
Yeah, they've gotten. I say they arguably gotten better at streamlining this. Microsoft's always been really good at throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping stuff sticks. I think to everyone's credit in the industry, I think everyone does this. Some people do it more elegantly than others. Apple, is notorious for nailing it on the first or second try with it. Other companies take like Samsung, 7 to 25 different iterations, but I think in the last 5 years they've gotten really good at honing in on what businesses need. And I think this is part of an evolution of the support system. They used to have a sprawling department for support, and I think they're, obviously like every company is trying to scale back, but they're also trying to make sure that they're answering the big questions that IT are having, and addressing those a lot quicker. So I'm sure there was somebody in some company saying like, hey, we want to communicate, but we don't want, all of this communication. And so here we go.
So milestones, bulletins, and Teams Pro are all things that are actually happening, which you'll be able to play with sooner or later. But there's a pretty cool thing that Microsoft Research has done with AI, that they plugged it in with Teams, and I'll let you handle that.
Yeah, this is all part of the Zoom boom, is what I'm going to call it, where video conferencing is becoming far more intelligent than just broadcasting, high def visuals. We noticed some of the similar stuff with Skype, but more specifically, AI for Teams meetings concepts. So Microsoft Research Team has developed a new AI that will automatically analyze people's expressions during video meetings. In the Microsoft Research paper published last month, and then spotted by New Scientist, the company describes Effective Spotlight, facilitating the communication of effective responses from audience members during online presentations. The Microsoft Teams bot that the company built acts as an additional attendee during virtual meetings. It can view the video stream from other participants and send its outgoing video to the meeting's attendees. The AI leverages neural networks to automatically classify participants' expressions into different categories, including anger, happiness, surprise, disgust, fear, sadness, and simply just being neutral or asleep. Interestingly, it can also determine movements such as nodding or head shaking. It has eyebrow detection system to spot confusion. For those of us who don't understand what people are saying in the meetings, maybe there'll be a pop-up with some additional information at some point. The tool was able to spotlight 40% of the attendees during virtual meetings, as compared to 87% with other similar tools. Still, the Redmond Giants are exploring different ideas to address the limitations and make improvements. Now, with all that being said, Silicon Valley and the folks in Redmond, tech giants of both Amazon and Microsoft, haven't had a very good track record with AI and facial recognition or awareness or things like that, especially for people of color. So, we'll take this research paper, this new idea, this new concept with a grain of salt, especially in its execution, because, again, it's just, maybe it's something to do with lighting, maybe it's just something to do with enough faces for people of color to, build out a database for, but, we've had some issues, Microsoft being amongst some of the industry providers with the same thing. So again, they said they're going to be working on it. The other thing I would caution too is that it sounds like there's going to be a virtual assistant / virtual nanny for employers. The way that it's described. Again, I could be misinterpreting the information, but the specific line about, let's see, where did I have it? The Microsoft Teams bot that the company built acts as an additional attendee during virtual meetings, meaning for those of us who used to sort of quote unquote slack during meetings that didn't have your immediate supervisor involved, this bot can now potentially relay information back. So if you were confused about something, if you seemed angry about something, if you seemed sad about something, I mean, these are all good things for it to have, but you also need to caution that it is sort of a spying tool with a lot of data that can be given back to employers, or even, if handled improperly, to clients, to partners, things like that. So we'll keep an eye on how Microsoft rolls this out, and I will actually see if I can reach out and see if we can get any more details about how this information is being processed, and who gets to collect it at the end of the day, and who gets to keep it.
Let's just hope that it doesn't end up like Tay. Do you remember the the
Tay,
Tay
the
what
racist Twitter bot.
Tay the racist Twitter bot who went rogue and started calling people Nazis and weird names and stuff?
Yeah, the anti-Semitic racist Twitter bot Tay had a short lifespan. May it rest in peace. But yeah, let's hope that this thing at least just stays quiet if it's going to have those kind of opinions.
Okay, so enough about AI. Let's just talk about whiteboard because it's something that a lot of people probably use in meetings every day, and apparently it's getting better in Teams right now.
Yeah, the new whiteboard integration brings the ability for users to add Microsoft's Whiteboard as a tab inside of Teams. Again, we're all focused on Teams. So anything that you think is an app that you would like to use, that you're currently using, just be prepared at some point that it's going to be involved in Teams. So if you were a fan of, I don't know, Outlook, it's going to be in Teams versus just being its own app. If you were a fan of the Photos app, somehow it's going to be in Teams. So thanks to the latest edition, commercial and education customers can now pin a whiteboard to any channel. Users will be able to open the Microsoft Whiteboard on a PC, Mac, iPad, and make it read-only or collaborative for the participants. I am trying to use Whiteboard more often. The problem is I've spent 2 decades plus using OneNote, and so
Oh
I've
yeah.
kind of got my workflow built for OneNote. But Whiteboard is a very creative version of, I believe, OneNote. It allows you a little more artistic stylings and a little more media integration. So for those of you who don't use Whiteboard or interested in Whiteboard, just you can obviously go to the Microsoft Store to download it. I believe all new Surface devices come with it pre-installed. So give it a shot and see how it compares to your current OneNote use.
You mentioned something about creativity and something that's key in creativity for most people. Or I know Brad, one of our writers, is really into using Pinterest and all of the boards. So apparently, Microsoft tried to buy Pinterest a couple years ago.
I just got whiplash from that segue. It was so quick. For those of you, yeah. After Microsoft tried but failed to acquire TikTok, which we all kind of saw, and for those of us who are Microsoft, longtime fans, were hoping didn't happen. Microsoft and TikTok are no longer. But there's a new report from the Financial Times that reveals that Microsoft was discussing an acquisition with Pinterest in recent months. The visual social network, which is currently valued at $51 billion, will be Microsoft's most expensive acquisition in the company's history. More so than LinkedIn, which made way more sense than this, but we'll come back to that in a second. However, discussions between the two companies are currently not active, according to the report. Pinterest is a San Francisco-based company created in 2010, and it went public back in 2019. So I say back in, but basically the year that time forgot plus one. So in 2019, and it had 442 million active users as of December. So presuming it's increased a little bit. It's especially popular with women, but it's becoming actually statistically, and during my day job, I work for a marketing firm. Men are finding it. They're becoming more active, and they're becoming bigger buyers and consumers on Pinterest. There's still like a 60-40 split between men and women, but their demographics increasing, which is part of the reason why the evaluation is so high as of recently. Women still represent more than 60% of the user base, as stated. The company describes itself as a visual discovery engine, helping consumers collect things on the internet that they find passionate about. But it's becoming a pretty big marketing platform slash product seller in its recent couple of years. So again, that's all to say this is probably part of the reason why Microsoft was initially interested in Pinterest, is that it could be for a few reasons. One, off the top of my head, as a marketer, it's an end around to Amazon and Google as far as product searches. I think what Amazon is kind of doing, which is encroaching on Google's search, is that people go to Amazon to search for things versus randomly searching for products, which you used to do in Google. So you type in, I want blue sandals. Instead of doing that in Google, you now go to Amazon to not only see if there's blue sandals, but to get pricing and to see reviews about it. And Pinterest is one of those things. So it would have definitely helped Microsoft to have acquired Pinterest and then add all of that search and purchase data to Bing. That's
They
one of my things.
already have a kind of a deal with Pinterest where it's in collections, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, yeah. For those of you using the new Edge, when you, for the first time, I believe, I don't know if it continuously pops up because I always just say okay to it, and I, try to test out different devices. So I'm always reinstalling Edge or the Canary version of it. But yeah, as soon as you open collections, there's a side panel that asks you if you'd like to participate with Pinterest. So I'm not quite sure how that integration fully forms though, because I collect things for our podcast, for reading material, just things for articles I write and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily about buying cologne or looking for bedroom decor or anything like that.
Or
So
iPhones, or iPhones.
or iPhones. I look for trash information about iPhones, so maybe there's that. But yeah, I'm curious to see where that integration goes. But yeah, that's part of the partnership. So we'll see maybe if this was a compromise, saying like, hey, we won't pay 51 billion for you, but we'll pay 8 billion for, or not even 8, but 700 million for you to be part of our Edge platform.
I'm gonna come up with another great transition here and blow you away once more. You know what Pinterest would work really good on, Kareem?
What's that?
The Surface Duo.
Oh,
Which just so happens to be coming to new markets. When it launched a couple of months ago, I believe it's almost close to probably 9 months now here in the US. The Duo only launched in the US, and people in other countries needed to import it and buy it from other places and then import it in to their country. So now Surface Duo is officially going to be available in Canada, France, Germany, and the UK starting February 18th. Um, in Canada, you'll be able to buy it through the Microsoft Store, Best Buy, and Best Buy Canada, and through resellers. And though we're not really sure about the pricing just yet on what it would be in terms of Canadian dollars, but in the UK, Microsoft teamed up with Curry's PC World to sell the dual screen device, and be prepared to be blown away here. The price starts at £1,349.
what?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right?
It's the barrier to entry for this device seems to be just increasing, which is the wrong direction you want when you want adoption, I would think.
And then it's even more expensive if you're in France or Germany. The Duo there is going to supposedly be at 1,549 euros for just the introduction model, and the 256 gigabyte model is over 100 euros more. And unlike what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, all of these models will only come with 6 gigabytes of RAM. There's no eight gigabyte model, unlike what the listing from the French retailer suggested last month. So again, Surface Duo is going to new places, but I'm not sure if anyone is actually going to buy one at that price.
I'm going to say no. Again, I am all for and excited for the prospect of, foldable phones, a foldable screen technology, stuff like this. But this is just, asinine for Microsoft to be saying like, hey, here's not only a 2-year-old technology, but we're going to be charging more for it in international markets. Like, especially when, like, again, rumors say that they should have a second version coming within, the next 5 to 6 months. So anybody who buys this is just being slapped in the face by Microsoft.
Well, what's
I think
even
they're
worse?
checking boxes and getting their distribution channels up and going.
What's even worse though is that the Duo still has Android 10, and like
Oh,
every single phone, Android phone from most popular Android makers like Samsung and HT. What are the major players here? Samsung and
Samsung,
uh,
LG is still
LG.
around, even though
Yeah,
they're considering not being. OnePlus. What else do we got? Paco, is that what they call them?
I don't know, but point is, all the major Android
Huawei.
phones and major Android makers, they've already updated
They've
all
already
their
did so.
phones to Android 11, and the Surface Duo is still stuck on Android 10, even though it's been like 9 or 10 months since it's been released. And I don't understand what's taking Microsoft so long. But apparently, there was a rumor going around from, I believe it was Dr. Windows, which is a German blog about Microsoft. He stated that he had a brief with Microsoft USA and the team that built the Surface Duo, and he learned that apparently they're working on Android 11 for this summer or the middle of this year. And Windows Central seem to have confirmed that. They're saying it's coming in the mid-year. And apparently they had to work together. Microsoft and Google had to work together to get like all the dual screen stuff right, so other Android makers could take the code and build their own Surface Duos.
Which, again, if we buy this story, which I may call me a skeptic, I don't. Um, Android 11 was supposed to already come with dual screen support, multi-screen support. Like that was part of the big thing that was in the code. And as we can see, obviously, I think Samsung and LG might have been the only two big companies to kind of jump on board with implementing any of this. So if Microsoft is coming out with the Duo, not only should it have been first in line for Android 11, meaning like, hey, in November when everyone else got it, Microsoft should have gotten it, right there with everyone else. But why is it taking them so long to get Android 11 on their device when everyone else, Samsung will come out with presumably the full 3 with 11 with quick support for Android 12 and whatever comes out with 12. Like it just doesn't make any sense that it's taking Microsoft and Google this long to do folding phones when Google already did this.
I guess that maybe they're trying to like work out the quirks and the bugs that a lot of people complain about when the Duo first came out. Maybe they're trying to perfect it and get everything right on and perfect. Because this is something that what was the big Windows 10 update? Like was it October 2018 update a couple of years ago that screwed up everyone's PC, and then everyone went so hard on Microsoft for it. So I'm sure that they're taking their time and making sure that this Android 11 won't just like brick everyone's Surface Duo.
I mean, which is going to be, again, I appreciate the hard work. So anybody who's from Microsoft watching or listening to this, please don't feel like I'm denigrating any of that. Like we appreciate all of the work and concentration and effort that's going into it. But there are things that will be coming out in Android 12, like widget support and theme styling, stuff like that, that would make the Duo more palatable for people. And they, presumably, if they keep at this pace of cautiously iterating, buying a Surface Duo 2 shouldn't be a thing until 2022, essentially, like mid-summer or whatever. So if they present something, this year, it's going to be like, oh, here's the Surface Duo 2 with Android 11 still, but we perfected it. Meanwhile, you're going to have the Note, 22, Note 20, whatever, with all kinds of crazy pin support and all kinds of different widgets and styling
with the
themes, stuff
with
like
the
that.
whole back of the phone having like 20 different cameras on it or
The whole,
something.
yeah, the whole back is just going to be like, yeah, one big eyeball. So it's it's just going to be interesting to like see how Microsoft kind of takes this approach, because it's one thing to do it for your PCs and your operating system doesn't change very much, like there are a few features and stuff like that, but for phones, people have the idea that a new phone comes with a new operating system. Like you don't ship new phones with old operating systems, and Microsoft's kind of doing that if they're going to be doing a Duo 2 with Android 11 still.
I hope it'll be something that they'll be able to learn from and take criticism from when they're pushing out the new Surface Duo.
Yeah, if and when, because if they keep
If
selling them at these prices in Europe, I'm sure someone's going to be like, no, shut this down.
But speaking of Surface, it's now time for the week ahead, and you're planning a big Surface review, aren't you?
Yeah, I still owe our readers my initial impressions on the Nano, so I will be having that out. I did the initial impressions for the Fold, and just as Mr. Mobile and I kind of had a conversation on Twitter saying that there's something missing. For those of you who haven't read the first impressions, I won't spoil it for you, but it seems like this device was definitely intended for Windows 10X, and they've haphazardly threw Windows 10 on there, which you think would have fit fine, but there are a lot of bugs and glitches. That are very noticeable, and I believe that they're due to hardware more so than this operating system. So Microsoft and Lenovo need to work that out, but the hardware itself, A plus, amazing. And then yeah, I owe you guys a Nano. But in addition, this is why we're talking about Surface. Surface Pro,
That's the star of the show.
yes, our Surface Pro 7 Plus. It's been a while since I've had a Surface Pro. I think my last one that I owned or even reviewed was a Surface Pro 4. So I'm super excited about this one. Seeing the new ports and everything. Also, kind of getting into this SSD down here and kind of making use of all of this and the spec improvements. Just in my initial 24 hours with the thing, I'm already noticing almost an hour additional battery life. I haven't used the LTE stuff yet because I need to purchase a plan for that, and our company doesn't provide it yet. Kip, I'm talking to you, but I will test that out as well and see if the battery life sustains with that. I know Gang Rubino's kind of put out his review of this so far early on, and he's saying that even with LTE on, that he didn't see any difference. So that's really good. Basically, what I'm getting at is that maybe we've been undervaluing or underrating spec bumps. Maybe Apple is onto something by just keeping the form factor as is, improving some of the internals, and relying heavily on Microsoft to deliver the operating system experiences.
As they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Exactly. There's a reason why that saying works, and I know everyone's kind of craving the redesign with like a Surface Pro X body, which again I'm all there for, but there is something to having port reliability. This I have a Surface dock that this thing connects to, and all my Surface devices connect to it very reliably. So for anybody who's bought accessories for this device over the last 9 years, it's great to have that, and then just get the new improvements from Intel, which I got to test out gaming and I got to test out the cooling. But again, solid, very solid device, very solid upgrade so far.
I'm really excited to see your review because I know that Intel is making big gains. There was this thing this week about about their ads against the Intel, not the Intel, the Apple M1 Max, where they're claiming that their 11th gen chips are better than the Apple M1. So I know Ice Lake made a lot of gains in terms of gaming and playing light titles like Rocket League. So I'm interested to see what these 11th gen chips are capable of in the new Surface Pro 7 Plus.
Yeah, just to kind of give our readers kind of a backdrop on the Intel thing, because I believe this isn't going to end anytime soon. So this is part of our week ahead. You wrote about Intel's last week's Twitter / impromptu throwdown against the M1. I thought it was cute. I thought it was coy, but I also think it's something that Intel really doesn't want to get into personally. Like, I think that she should have quietly just given the reviewers the option to test an M1, to test their new chipset, and let them review it. This back and forth is really opening them up for me, from my personal view, to AMD coming in from out of sideways from left field and kind of cutting them off at the knees, because for all the things that they're saying that Intel does better than the Mac, AMD does better than Intel, and a lot of manufacturers partners are using AMD these days. AMD's featured heavily in Lenovo's lineup. It's featured heavily in Dell's lineup as well. Microsoft is rumored to be expanding its usage in the Surface lineup. So Intel, watch where you trot these lines out.
That's definitely going to be something that's worth keeping an eye on in the week ahead, because I even saw that they did like these benchmark tests where they're saying that like an 11th gen Intel Evo laptop could launch PowerPoint faster and do PowerPoint slides faster than an Apple M1 can. And then they're like, oh, the battery gains on the Apple M1 are not all that great in a laptop because we tested this, I think it was an Acer or an Asus laptop, and it's pretty much the same. So new showdown. We had Mac versus PC. Now we have Intel versus Apple.
Yeah, I feel like we're back in late 1990s.
Okay, and speaking of, this relates to something that we talked about last week, where we said Microsoft could be holding these breakout events. Well, we had one for Viva, which we talked about to start the show, and now apparently there's a new event coming up for Microsoft AI and gaming research. This sounds like it's something about Xbox, but technically it's not really about Xbox. But Phil Spencer, who heads the Xbox team, he's going to be there. And apparently, this event is about four different things. It's about AI agents, responsible gaming, computational creativity, and understanding players. So it's basically the behind the scenes stuff of creating Xbox and creating Xbox games. So it's something to keep an eye on if you're an Xbox fan.
Yeah, I hope that they expand on this. I hope this becomes its own build, but for the Xbox community. Like this is, we always kind of just lump Xbox into Microsoft's huge build development thing, and I know that they do it for financial reasons. But if they're able to, like we said, break these things out and be more economical with their time and their focus, I think there's a huge hunger for a Xbox dedicated developer community outreach program. And if all of these highlights that he's talking about are a focus in the beginning of that, I think it'd be great.
And that pretty much does it. And I'll leave you for the last topic because you were able to get our special guest to appear on the show. So I'll let you talk about it and tease what he's going to talk about with us for next week.
Yeah. Again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Richard Hay is going to be joining us next week. He is very active on Twitter. For those of you who know him, for those of you who don't, follow him on Twitter. See if we can put his Twitter handle in the links below. I don't know it off the top of my head. I just follow him and I see his information all the time. I've met him a few times at Ignite. He's a fellow Floridian. He's very big into space travel and exploration. So he's constantly tweeting all of the space launches. He's a big man of faith, and he is also a Microsoft MVP. And so he's very active in the community, very knowledgeable, super friendly guy. We're gonna talk about all kinds of things with him. We're gonna let him kind of guide the conversation. But again, if you guys have anything specific that you want us to ask him, we're gonna kind of do a teaser post, and you can put your comments or questions in that section below. Again, just let us know what you would like us to ask, and we'll see if he's okay with answering it. But it's a big privilege to have him on the show.
This would be our third special guest. So on podcast is going places.
Yeah, we're starting with our community, with fellow journalists, with developers. At some point, we would love to have people from Microsoft or specific divisions within Windows or gaming, things like that, to kind of, reach out to us, or we reach out to them and they say yes. We just want to make sure that we bring you guys, relevant, entertaining content.
And that about does it. That's our last topic. So I'll leave you for the traditional outro.
Yeah, again, Kareem Anderson. You can follow me at Twitter at Mindhead1, the only one. If you're looking for Mindhead, he's going to give you a bunch of runarounds and content you don't care about. And you can also follow Eric Backus at
ABACJourn.
Yes, and he will be constantly tweeting about new food restaurants and every places he finds, and NASCAR seems to be like his big thing.
And let's not forget Apple too.
He tweets about Apple. I tweet about Apple trash. So you follow whichever one you want.
You need two to tango, right?
Exactly.
So thanks for watching, everyone, and we hope to see you again, same place, same time next week.
Thank you. Be safe. Wear your mask, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.